Hello everybody, my name is ManuS and welcome to another MTGCardmarket modern video series here of mine. Today I'm gonna finally take my version of Sultai Visions to battle to see how we're doing. I've wrote about this deck a while ago and have been looking to borrow the missing more expensive cards like Creeping Target and Visions and stuff that I don't own from a friend, and I finally found someone that has them and was able to lend them to me for the duration of the video. So that's a pretty big deal. Thanks to Chris Piccola for being so kind to help out and lend them to me. He was the one that was willing to help and give them away for a couple of hours in the midst of his Unified Modern GP testing. Alright, so let's dive into the deck. The list is not exactly the same as in the article. I rethought a couple of things and adjusted a few things in a way that I want to try. So let's go over the list real quick. We have 4 Ancestral Vision, 4 Serum Visions, 4 Snapcaster Mage, 4 Cryptic Command, 4 Tarmogoyf. All these don't need much explanation. They have been explained in the video and they're also just like modern staples basically. Next we have the counters, additional counters in 2 Spell Snare and 2 Mana Leak. These are by now the numbers you most of the time see on these cards, if you see Mana Leak at all anymore basically. Spell Snare, while really efficient and strong, the card is pretty limited in its targets, and there's decks that have no targets or some decks that only have very few targets that are even worse countering. So 2 has been kind of the right number for a long time that feels good and gives you the early tempo and the early defense that you want without flooding out on them and constantly sitting there mid-game with a dead spell snare in your hand, which I can tell you is pretty terrible. I tried higher numbers a bunch of times. 3 can sometimes be okay, but 4 almost never works. It mostly feels terrible. You have them sitting in your hand all the time. And yeah, 2 feels about right. Same with Mana Leak basically. We just need some additional early defense. Mana Leak gets the job done, but the card, due to a lot of decks running a very low curve or running stuff like Drawn Lands, can become dead fairly quickly, so it's not the most reliable. So 2 seems like a decent number just to patch up our early game and early mid game defenses a bit. I went down to only 3 Fatal Push, simply because there's a whole lot of Eldrazi decks, Banned Eldrazi and Eldrazi Tron are both heavily played top decks right now, and this card does very limited work against them. While it is very efficient, its limitations are actually quite relevant right now, which is why I'm also running to Go for the Throat, which unfortunately are bad against Affinity, which is still a top deck, but I think you can't really run, say, Doomblade in a world with Death Shadow aggro being the best deck, so Go for the Throat it is. I mean, there's an argument to be made to run Doomblade over Go for the Throat, that the Abrupt Decays and Fatal Pushes should cover Death Shadow enough, and Doomblade still kills their Tarmogoyfs and stuff and is better against Affinity. Maybe a 1-1 split is right. The problem is just against Death Shadow aggro, if you're staring down a lethal threatening Death Shadow and you draw a Go for the Throat, draw a Doomblade instead of a Go for the Throat, you're gonna be really unhappy and really dead. So yeah, I think that might just be a bit of a safer setup, given that these Doomblade type effects are not that good against Affinity anyways, and we might have to deal with them in another way. But there's still an argument to be made, like I said, that the other removal just covers Death Shadow enough, and therefore Doomblade is better. But there's also other minor options like Siege Rhino and Dark Confident, for example, where Go for the Throat matters over Doomblade. So it's not just Death Shadow. Oh yeah, and there's also, as you can see, Tasigur in some decks, since we played 2. And yeah, the other removal is like 2 Abrupt Decay, kind of like a catch-all for low to the ground stuff, and Problematic Permanence, Ensnaring Bridge, Pyromancer's Ascension. So many cards this can handle. Just really great tool to have from the green splash basically. And 1 Maelstrom Pulse, which kind of serves the same purpose as DK, except that it also helps against stuff like Lingering Souls and 5+ or like 4+ cost creatures like Tassigurs, Siege Rhinos, Reality Smasher, and some other bigger Eldrazi's. It is entirely possible that the deck should and would want to have a second one of these. I'm not sure. The card is like kinda clunky, which is why I currently only run 1. Just to see how it feels. And yeah, for additional creatures we have 2 Tassigur and 4 Tarmogoyf. Only running 2 Tassigur because we already have the Tarmogoyfs, and I also that reduces the chance of drawing a second when the first one is still around, and also allows us to only run 3 Swordscore to have some more room for stuff like the 23rd land as a Ghost Quarter that I'm currently running. So yeah, the mana base is pretty straightforward for a deck like this. Not much explanation needed. 2 Tar Pit for like some extra threats, extra value from our mana base. 1 Ghost Quarter, especially to deal with the 2 like fairly prominent Tron decks right now, plus a bunch of manlands from like Affinity and stuff like that. Card is just pretty versatile right now, and there's a bunch of good targets. And it is like part of a package basically with 2 more in the sideboard. Let's go over the sideboard real quick. We have like 2 Dispel and 2 Negate for like spell-based, control-ish and combo decks. Both are also helpful against Burn. Counter Squall also comes in handy against Tron. Another interesting card to consider that I'm currently not running, but maybe should be running, is Ceremonial Rejection. Actually, I kind of forgot about the card before, and I think I just want to like run like 1 or 2, since the card it's Ceremonious Rejection, never mind. Yeah, I just think I kind of want to run at least like 1. I think I'll give up on the Force Fatal Push for now. Not too sold on that right now. And yeah, the card just is really versatile right now. Affinity, Eldrazi Tron, Banned Eldrazi, and Lantern Control, and regular Tron, to name the most prominent relevant matchups where this is really nice. 2 Sours are like one of the more outside the box ideas. I think they are really nice against some decks that have a lot of trouble dealing with them, like Affinity. Also against Affinity it provides a colorless blocker for their Edge Champion after stealing 1. Then it is also really nice against the Eldrazi decks, especially Eldrazi Tron has only limited ways of dealing with this, and it's a big deal stealing like a big Eldrazi monster. And the same goes for like Death Shadow aggro. They only have limited ways of dealing with this, and stealing one of their big creatures, or even stealing like a Death Shadow that dies right away, so they can't even like kill it after the fact, is really nice, and provides like some extra answers and power punch to the deck post sideboard against these types of decks. And it's still decent against like the black-green X mid-range decks and company decks and stuff like that. Some Surgical Extraction, mainly for the still occasionally showing up Dredge and other random graveyard-based strategies where you might want it. Can also come in with the Ghost Quarters against Tron-based decks to just break up that Tron and extract it. Collective Brutality is basically like the go-to anti-burn card by now, I would say, in these colors. Just does a lot for little mana. You just get to kill one of their creatures, gain 2 life, and strip their best burn spell. all for the cost of 2 mana. Sure, it's like 3 cards for 3 cards usually, since gaining 2 life should usually mean they need another burn spell to kill you, most of the time. So discarding like more expensive cards that you don't need right now to trade with a card off a burn player is just really great and really powerful. And if you ever get to like Snapcaster that back, that should like completely blow the burn player out of the water. 1 Damnation against Affinity and especially the Eldrazi decks. It's like a way to catch up when the game got out of hand. And yeah, the Ghost Quarters for the Tron decks alongside the Extraction. And 1 Explosive is just another like catch-all abrupt decay type answer to deal with various things, and also like another way to deal with a swarm of tokens like Lingering Souls and stuff. Alright, that's it for the deck tech. Gonna jump into a competitive league with the deck and see how we're doing. Stay tuned for the first match in a moment.